used it a couple of times. We did it on around Christmas time, and I can see straight away that's not a good idea. Especially
To be fair, we do encourage it, like
especially with blow lamps and stuff like that going around.
Yeah, doing it and licking that off you.
we will encourage them to say that lads,
I've never used it.
look, guys, there's an exam coming up, just look at the board throughout the day, just read a few questions, pick them off. That's what that's how a lot of them like to actually.
Yeah.
Like you say, what he's saying, it's part of their lifestyle. They like, even when you're watching, they're like, I see it with my nephew, he's like 13, 14, and he's playing his game and he's got YouTube on.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm like, how can you concentrate?
I
This is
know.
exactly what you're saying. They
Yeah.
probably are more capable of doing that than we are.
Yeah.
Because we never do that when they're used to looking at something whilst doing something.
Yeah.
It's not like you engage their brain while they're doing it.
It's a new breed
Yeah.
of men coming up that can multitask.
Wow.
Out of that. Blimey.
What I really liked about there, what played out was you both got a resource tool here, which isn't working for you and yours, but it's working for you.
Yeah,
With
we find
me.
it.
So again, it's about learning about all these different ways of working and what works and what doesn't. But that was interesting as well, Ryan, because you're right. They can do so many different things. I don't know how many times I said to my daughter, how can you do that and concentrate on that? Well, of course I can, Mum. And looked at me like I was stupid. What can't you do it? No, I can't sit there and write an essay and listen to music and have YouTube on it, in the corner. I can't do that. But if she had one thing to do and I took those other two away, it would completely throw her. Isn't it? It's all good. Okay, thank you. How are we doing for time? You must shake me and tell me off because, you do need to go home. Okay, so reflecting on that previous slide, and we've done a little bit there in discussion. So again, even just that little discussion things come back, isn't it? Yeah. So how difficult are your subjects to build an inclusive teaching learning environment, especially your workshop places?
Can I throw something out?
Please.
Right.
Not
Okay,
that,
that's not. I'm sort of raising it. The word inclusive keeps coming up, right? And we all want to be inclusive, but any day. Then there has got to be a line somewhere where you can't teach everybody everything. Are we going to touch on that in this as well or not?
we will do as we go along, but yeah, I understand what you're saying, but if we are proving to be inclusive,
Yeah.
isn't that enough? Because I couldn't teach all of you to be counsellors, could I?
No.
Some of you might not want to be. Some of you would just think, I don't want to sit there and listen to something.
No.
Yeah. So we can't do bespoke learning for each individual, otherwise you're just going to teach them a one-to-one. But maybe that's what the learner needs. You might have somebody in your class who does need that one-to-one. But you're still being inclusive if you're sorting that out for them, aren't you?
But if they don't want to learn, if they've decided halfway through the day,
If they're not capable,
they just, yeah.
because there are.
I
We
hear
get it in our. Then this is something I suppose I'm relating specifically to maybe
to your trade.
trades.
Yeah.
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 There are people out there, and what teaching they get, they're not capable of doing it.
Yeah, and you do a lot more of that in the diploma in education.
Right.
I touched on that as well.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to think that everybody is capable of doing what they want to do. And we say that to them, don't we? We say it to our kids, you can be whatever you want to be. You be an astronaut if you want to be an astronaut. Okay, so we say that. My experience has been in teaching and counselling. You get quite a lot of drop-off if you're going to you might start with a class of 20. By the time you get to degree level, you've probably got like 8 of them. I hope to think that they realise it for themselves. Okay, so the good way in teaching has been allowing somebody to come to their own conclusion that it is right for them. Yeah. Forgotten your name, sorry.
That's actually what that's a way to go.
Charlotte, yeah. So Charlotte mentioned earlier. You were talking, Charlotte, earlier about
a learning style, the things.
yeah, but you were saying something about turning the question back on the person. Okay, in coaching. Okay, so how well do you think you've done today? What were some of the good points that you did today?
Yeah.
What areas were you struggling in? So you're actually bringing the idea to them that actually I have to do this. It's just like I can't do it. If they come to that themselves, then I feel that that's much kinder than to
Yeah.
say, do you know what? You're just not made for this.
That's the thing you should say. That's the way we're going about it.
Yeah.
We're planting the seed now with something like students that maybe you need to think about
Doing
doing
some
some this. Do you think you could get this page next year and then when the pressure's really on and
The
you
whole
think
thing,
you,
well, it might not happen. It
No, it-
might be,
it's
I know Dad wants me to be a plumber. I
peer
wouldn't
pressure
do that,
is
but
massive.
you know, Dad wants me to be a
Peer
plumber.
pressure is massive. Peer
And
pressure-
my mates,
Sorry.
yeah, my mates.
Oh, no, I was just thinking about a long time ago, I had a student, she wasn't one of my students, I just happened to hear about her through a friend. And I offered to kind of give her a bit of mentoring on her training course. And it turned out that actually she wasn't. She was exactly that. Her mum and her dad wanted her to be either a lawyer or a nurse,
Yeah.
but actually she didn't have the capability to be either of those.
See, like,
And so
it's not one section.
pushing her. And in the end, I had to say, I was teaching her,
Yeah,
but I knew that she couldn't do it. And I just thought, it's so sad, isn't it, that people want me to do that?
but she might have been capable, but the thing is, if you don't want to do something, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So you might be capable of doing something, some of these things, but actually push against that because it's not what you want to do. It's what somebody else wants you to do. And it's the same thing, isn't it? What are you going to do next year? Oh, I'm going to do childcare because all my mates are doing childcare. We're all going to do childcare. What, do you want to work with kids? No, but all my mates are doing childcare, so we're all going to do childcare. Which you wouldn't do.
One industry then, but I've got a handful of friends who are, and they are all mixed. And it is actually the farming community.
Yes.
Like I know a lad who's, so what are you going to do then? Well, I've got to take the farm on, haven't I? And that,
That's a massive thing. Like,
Yeah.
No, that's
It's like-
that's almost a given, isn't it, really?
it is, but like my uncle farms, but his son decided he wanted to step away, get into pharmaceuticals,
Yeah,
and he gave him the free rein to say, yeah, go on. So he's in that predicament now where he's 83 and still farming.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like his son doesn't want it. The
Nobody wants it.
daughter kind of wanted it, but it's like, no, the son. So, but then I got friends who just stepped into it, but they didn't want to get into it.
No.
But they got no.
thing. So if somebody is failing in your class or not doing, I don't know you're failing, but not doing so well in your class, you always ask yourself that question. Are they here because they want to be, or are they here because they're different? You're not going to be able to learn something if you don't like it. I couldn't stand French at school. I didn't like the French teacher. She frightened me. I could have probably learned French quite easily, but the fact that I didn't like the teacher, I didn't like the way she made me feel, and the fact that I said I'm never going to France anyway, I never put any effort in. Yeah, so it's all of those different things as well, isn't it? Yeah. Regressing, didn't I? Yeah. So how difficult are your subjects to be able to allow you to do some of those learning, was what I was saying, some of those approaches. What is it about your learning environment that makes inclusivity easy to achieve? So is there something within your own working environment that actually it's quite easy to do this? This part of inclusivity. I suppose the demonstration kind of thing.
I would say a lot of the trades are very practical learners, so the hands-on stuff is easy.
That's
Because
easy,
you
yeah.
get tools to abstract on.
Yes.
Then getting into a classroom, you get 15 mechanics into a classroom and they just rip valve from the minute.
Yeah.
As soon as they see that ball turn on or a paper come out,
So it's
then
done.
they'll stay on.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
For counselling, we definitely have to do the theory. If we don't do the theory, we can't do the practical. So it's all different areas of work, isn't it? Different ways of working. Okay. So what I want you to do before I say,
The stick that we hold over the boys in the trades is that, well, you want to work with your hands, but you've got to understand theory behind it. And if you want to get a job practically, sorry, boys, you've got to actually do this.
yeah, you've got to.
That is ultimately the rod that we hold over them.
Yeah.
And eventually, I think it dawns on them a little bit. I've implemented ways in the workshop practically where things go pear-shaped. And I'll say, right, okay, put it right. And then they go, well, I don't know how to. So yeah, because you need to do the theory
Yeah,
behind that. So you understand when you've got water running everywhere and it's coming through a ceiling,
what's causing it?
what's causing it,
Yeah.
and how do you put it right? you know, and that's almost a way of bringing into them that, sorry, boys, we want to do this for a living. Ultimately, you've got to sit there in a classroom and you've got to do it.
And I suppose to make that inclusive, then it would be not to do a whole hour on theory. So, for example, with counselling, we'd have an hour on theory, then we'd have an hour doing skills, then we'd have an hour on ethics, diversity. So they'd all be chunks. But with your guys, I imagine that you could probably do a practical task and then tuck in the theory behind it.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, because they're in the workshop all day effectively, so,
Exactly.
you know, we can get a lot to go to the classroom.
Putting that in,
Yeah.
dipping that bit of theory in as you go, and like you say, then do a quiz at the end. I imagine you probably do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's ways to say, right, how can I do all this and still make it inclusive to everybody? And what can I do and I can do it really, really well? And what are the things that I can't do so well? And if I can't do those so well, what's the reasons behind it? Okay. So that's the idea for this next bit. So you've got on your cards lots of different approaches that you talked about, and I will put mine up there as well. What I want you to do, the reason why I get you to do stuff like this as well is when you've finished, I can take them in and I can upload them onto Teams and you can cover some more outcomes. We talked about getting these outcomes ticked off and covered towards assignments and things like that. This is how you can do it. And you can do this with your own. The classes that you teach at the moment, is it like BTEC or something like that? Was it apprenticeship?
Yeah.
So they've got to complete units and they've got to meet outcomes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the old way would be, we teach you, then you do an essay at the end and we tick the outcomes off. Yeah. This way is nice because you can just tick off bits of outcomes and they all add up at the end. Does that make sense? I don't know if you've worked that way before. This is, well, I'm going to do more, so I was just going to do a couple on each table, that's all. That's fine. So we do it that way. And then I will upload them and I can say that you've covered these. So what I want you to do, those ones that you put on the list, and do it all between you. Copy the approach, what's the strength of it and what's the limitation of it in your own interests.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I put that one up that I had, yeah, you've all got an industry, so pop your industry down. You don't have to fill them all, you just fill one sheet in or just do a comparison. I handed them all out, sorry, it's me. It's one on the table. Yeah, or you can do a pair if you want to do a pair, whichever way you want to do it. One on the table. There you are. Put what your industry is on the side here. And then go through each industry, what are their strengths, what are those strengths and limitations in the approach. I'm just going to pop those ones up on the board that I had. So you've got them as well.
Side, swimming, electrical, certification.
So it was very clear then.
Yes.
We can say,
Yeah.
With plenty of money to go to, yeah,
Help those.
or we actually, that's we teach them,
Learn.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah, it's not just spend the same as that's one, but there's a price that's really low actually. Yeah, yeah. We're putting ours there in place, the only approach, push the discussion, discussion. Yeah, we'll also have some discussion, so we'll have that one to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so it's only one at a time.
Well, we'll have an assessment or we'll have a task set, which will be sort of like different.
I think that'll be the strength.
Doubles.
I think that'll be the very top piece. Inclusivity,
Limitations, especially like a
Showing your schedule of works. How they've gone, so like step one, step two. So it's not like here, they have to show it.
It's not inclusive.
So what, how much is with a lot of, so discussion, what's good about it, group, because from your times to say,
inclusive
I
of.
think I'm taking inclusive hours and bringing
That's back into it because.
I mean, it is inclusive in the invite everybody to be included.
Yeah.
But why got shy of people that
Okay,
Yeah,
what I
like,
want to do is just take a couple eight on there, times it by how many times a second.
Yeah, that's okay.
How many times a second that's gonna cut you?
Limitations and shy
Yes.
people who, you know, it's like contribute.
I'm sure we'll take the
What's that info word for statement?
What? So it's just so you can just have a look at the different areas of life. What they were talking about. Being able to using those little things that I've looked at, and I still don't know.
As a general limitation.
Sharing opinion on something, whether it's different needs, you can allow it to be social.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not just feel that's target, I was like, okay, I'm doing this with you, so.
It's quite difficult, as you know, so it's not because students, I find it difficult, because I'm new.
Let's move on.
I don't know whether.
Do you have a demonstration?
They won't.
Different share.
There's a few individual reads, what sort of work.
Good discussion, we try to figure out how it needs and.
Session on
Different regions and different houses are doing it. That'd be
Trying to get through that. I asked, but she didn't know she asked.
Yeah.
It's really hard thing. You know, where the only way I know that they're understanding.
Yeah, but we're saying that's the problem is that the requirement, like, to
And then I
be,
don't get.
because it's a discussion unless the fourth ones and requirements will always be around.
But yeah, if you know what's constantly going over previous work.
Yeah, I do try to overlap it.
That's what we figured. Doesn't need to everybody's needs.
It won't be time, but.
No,
So would that be kind of.
fail.
You could do everything.
That sounds good. Well, to meet everybody's needs, doesn't it?
You've actually, like, it's very case, we've started to order themselves and they're less.
Yeah, so how would you, conscious, yeah, sorry, yeah, I know, excuse me, someone.
Smaller.
Yeah, so you smaller group,
Like,
You can only,
like large group.
and also writing there,
you can only do twice
to write something and kind of line it out, so getting somebody to do that visual task. And then share as a
Quite
task.
awesome, actually,
Yeah,
I
so
think.
discussion, you.
But yeah,
how.
it's,
But actually, if I get you all to do something individually first, and then you might share that with a partner, like, well, what have you got on the end that you want to talk about? It's bringing everybody in.
Yeah.
So you still have that discussion up in a sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want the.
Are they
learning, yeah, take
Yeah,
those.
it's true.
Do demonstrations.
Yeah.
So strengths,
Watching this and making
Because
it
you-
live
strong visual learning method.
I learned quite quickly that this age group, they can't help with more than 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
There's limitation.
25 minutes.
It's a small snapshot, that's in there, it's like you were saying, Gareth was saying that,
I
you know,
don't,
if he does a demonstration, somebody will get it straight
my
away.
age group.
And then others, I haven't got it because it can be a small snapshot of learning. And unless you repeat that demonstration so far, those learners who don't get it straight away are going to be lost if it's not repeated. So, we've done encapsulate that, but
Need.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, the limitations is it's sort of small, it's potentially a small learning snapshot, isn't it?
Assignment.
And that would be the end of the meeting, then you will get an demonstration.
Yeah.
And limitations would not, the demonstration may not suit everybody.
Repeating small.
Having a demonstration with a handout or something, so whatever that person's doing, it's on a handout, so it's
Yeah,
step by step, kind of.
Yeah, reinforces the demo. Yeah,
Right, that should.
That's what
You've got video stuff.
You know, I can take all of them.
Do you get people online in workshops? That's basically dropping them in while your tapes are out and after you can put a video in it. If you like the blend industry, there's all these YouTubers doing
Find something to do before she goes down.
We also doesn't get it. We sound in the game and like.
We talk about the digital, you know, like, you know, and they won't do it, they won't do it, and that's my biggest challenge, it's trying to find a different, creative way to do that.
Yeah.
And so I might.
Do it, say number one, it's time, it's pretty.
Yes, but nobody else is listening, so it's like, so really.
Yeah, I bet yes, I'm not.
And also, their competence grows because back like their students would be that listening very much. So then when they know something, one thing to student up there is finished better, the student and not one best like and the worst. All of them coming from there when they're there. And all of a sudden they often become the tutors. They start minding each other's work.
Feed off each other, isn't it?
It is, yeah. What I can compliment.
Yeah.
Bit like you are doing now, we're
Anybody else will work. Like you'll have a block wall like that and it's leaning over a student name. Like that, these going into it.
Yeah, you share knowledge, it's like shared knowledge and
Yeah, it's
experience.
how to learn, it's time to learn when you're out again. And it's like, can you get yours right?
No.
It's
Well, that's what we've got. That good, that's it.
Like this, well, actually, there you go, here's your.
Working in different places, whereas might be that good.
Oh, yeah.
I never did what ILP stood for.
So do they just throw the letters on?
Oh, this place is full of it, I have no idea what's on it.
It's like a piece.
You know, Gareth learned to get really speaks on it, with no, you know, no ability to shout at anybody, get yourself. I literally finished that stage back to the end of Friday, started dealing with the mental, like, what the hell happened? It's crazy in that sense, and I'm still not, I guess, still finding how to respond as we go.
Yes, on that.
Yeah.
And then you go, then it's just got the.
Like a sort of phone shot.
Yeah, it makes it easy to work through it, so just are they breathing, are they responding?
So,
Sort of,
so
sort
what's
of
the
being
difference?
covered, everybody else.
Is that when you're training, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you get, oh, that's a really good
That's a
thing.
good way of doing it. You quickly react to things.
That's what
Things where, like, that's not really. Sort of. Yeah, they return, so you have different scenarios.
You know,
It's a really good idea, and I think actually, it's missing, I think.
yeah, anything you do to make our lives easier by making the teachers
They don't give them that.
within that.
Look,
Because basically you need them whether they need triage, whether they're like, it categorises student from sort of, are they, can they step aside away from that scenario when.
Weekends community.
We say, work, sometimes, that one person can.
Yeah. Doesn't operate to the lowest common denominator.
I'm getting used to it. Just getting used to it. When he comes out with stuff, what you missed it. They just.
It's not the same as basically the weekend. Yeah. It would be left behind.
Some of my level friends come in and go, "Ah, I thought that's a thing." I said, "It's going to be days again."
It's so classes, yeah. It's a split course, so they're doing plumbing one day, electrics another day, theory another day. But the theory is like,
Yeah,
from theory is how to see the how to apply for jobs and stuff. So it's, yeah, so we see the same students. So they've got two completely different outlooks in life in terms of how I teach now, guys. But it works well.
It's a different places when.
Oh, yeah. Well, Andy, who used to do, he said of course, he basically says that there are some students that have to bring learning and the gap. So, based on
Students.
And within.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you go round then? So
Yeah,
they-
go.
You go round and say, oh, it's like an
I
art.
will, I'll make sure, like,
Yeah.
24 students in one class, just make sure I,
Makes sense.
I go in, manage to do right, getting on, and then like I'll leave in 20 minutes or whatever, and then you're gonna miss it, it's like, yep, that's your station. And then I will always make sure I literally, that's a 10 day, if I don't go around every single one, I give on it, then I have,
Yeah.
I just make sure it's there, I'm there and say, any who have.
Yeah.
And it is nice for these, it's like an energy, it's something that I'm gonna be out. It is, it's a real battle.
Cuba. You have lots of Cuba.
That's good.
Right, should we have a then?
Not really. It's Dave, we can't shut
No,
that one.
it's-
Still trying to start them.
Yeah, we are nearly done now. I've got two more little bits to tell you. And we've already been a bit early tonight as well. No, we won't, not really. I think you are, I think we should have made this flat.
I'll give you
I think we've got like a sensible slide and a fun slide.
constructive.
That's it.
We're inclusive in this. We're inclusive. There you go. See,
If I do,
we're backing up in your lesson plan.
thank you. Couldn't all that when I get home. If I do group work as well, so at the very beginning of term, so I was doing theoretical approaches this time, so we were looking at psychodynamic CBT and person-centered. So I got everybody to have groups, so groups of 4, and they would keep within that group for the whole duration of the course. So we did team names, so fun. They love that. All going away and finding like these fancy names, they all wanted, the better name than anybody else, and some had names that, I teach adults as well. Some had names with meanings behind it, and I had to find out what the meaning was. And one was Carl Rogers' middle name, and it was Ransom. I thought they said Ransom, so I got completely different names of what their team was about. But little things like that, isn't it? Yeah.
And what's Dua Lipa's real name?
I don't know.
And you know what Dua Lipa's real name is?
I did know.
Doris.
No, Dua Lipa. That's your real name. That was one of my quiz questions, by the way. But he keeps making it from me, by the way. I'm trying to see his bloody idea. I did the first quiz, and he bloody jumped on the bandwagon.
That's inclusivity. Right.
He's sharing the love. We say.
There. Right, so what have we got then? So we've looked at the strengths and the weaknesses of, let's strip it back. We looked at inclusivity and how we do that in our different classrooms and our different areas of work, okay? So we looked at some different approaches on how we teach. And then we looked at, out of those approaches, what works well in my industry and what doesn't work well, and the things that don't work well, could I improve them and maybe change them slightly? Yeah. So that was what the strengths and the weaknesses was all about, just looking at. Has anybody found something that, oh, I didn't realise that, and actually that might work. I might be able to actually use that approach, and I wouldn't have used it before. I'm not expecting miracles, we've only had a couple of times, but is there anything that stuck out for somebody saying, I never really thought about that approach, but actually I think that could work in my industry?
I had time in the hair for TA and they had what they classed as an aid memoir.
So you can say, if I were in squad then.
So it was a tiny little book you were given in basic training. And
Yes.
it was an aid memoir. So when you went in sort of battlefield casualty drills,
Yeah.
if you come across it was more for sort of like when you're out on active service. So if you came across an incident, you were able to open this book. Is a patient breathing? Straight arrow. Have they got open wound fractures? Are they, if they're talking, you take them out of the equation. So it's like triage 1, triage 2.
Yeah.
And then that sort of literally gave you a sort of, right, if he's not breathing, recovery position, it's sort of, so yeah, it's, and then if you, like, it leads you on to whether you've got to administer morphine to them. So you always carried an EpiPen on your persons for them to give to you. So like each individual had one EpiPen. So it was literally like a little step-by-step instruction book
Yeah.
for how serious, but it was universal. So
You could do anything with that. couldn't you?
yeah, so that was like basic first aid training in a tiny little pocket book we used to just carry on with us. So it would, and then like going back to role plays and sort of like the scenarios, like they'd set up a different scenario each year or it was always like we revised. So you were always able to put this book out if you weren't too sure and actually just use that as your guidance. And that was, it was such a little valuable bit of,
You could use an aid memoir for anything really.
Yeah.
couldn't you? So in any area that you work, and if you want them to remember something or just it's like a revision tool, isn't it?
basically it was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was such a good little bit of kit. It was unbelievable, like really. So
I've used the incident here with examples. So I'm instructing scuba diving. We've got what we call the incident pair. And it's basically if you're encountering something that's going wrong with diving buddy or whatever, you've got this incident pair. It starts off slow like that, gradually gets steeper until it's vertical and then in the bottom of the pair, which ultimately in the diving is death. And I've used it on the board a couple of times. I've had a couple of lads messing around or something like that, do you know what I mean? And or they're not paying attention, something like that. And I literally I drew it on the board once. They were all mucking about and that. I just drew this thing on the board, and I went, boys, can I have a look at this a minute? And they're all looking at it. I said, this is the incident pit. We use this in diving. I said, but this doesn't actually relate to what we're going on in this workshop. I said, because if I say to you in diving terms, the bottom there is death. I said, but in relation in here, that's a stage 5 and you kick down. All right. So I said, look, at the moment, we're not on the too steep bit yet. I said, I can control you at the moment. I've got a chance of bringing you back. I've got a chance of saving you. And we're going to get out of this alive. I said, but we're in danger of getting a little bit steeper. And then that means I've got to start doing things that are a bit more extreme, a little bit more severe to stop you going down and getting to stage 5. And that's like, I suppose, using a visual aid.
Yeah.
I would guess, something like that. And that's related to something that I guess it's similar with you. I've been taught with other things that you bring in.
That you bring
Yeah,
bring in your own stuff.
yeah.
Any more?
Threaten them with a piece of stick.
Or bribery. Please.
I like the idea of questioning and sort of saying, how do you feel it work for you today? I've sort of done that, but probably not as much as I should on the ones that are either lazy or slow.
That's discrimination, David.
No, I'm not, no, to be fair, I'm just saying some are slow. There's absolutely two different categories there. And yeah, I think I might, I need to introduce that more in terms of trying to get them and sort of say, how did you feel it went today? Was there anything you struggled with? Or yeah, I mean, the ones that are lazy, you just find it out and you just have to stand near them so they work harder without
They're the ones that
wrong.
don't do very much but pass everything.
Yeah, we'll find that out. But no, because in a workshop, of course, they can wander around. It's not like they're sat at desks.
Yeah.
And everybody's always walking around there, getting tools, getting equipment and stuff. So it's a little more difficult to keep an eye on all of them all of the time. And the lazy ones are the ones that tend to do a bit and then talk and then just skive off as much. And then I tend to know the slow ones because they don't walk around as much, but they don't do as much either because they're struggling. So yeah, I think I need to sort of say to those, how do you feel you got on today? Is there anything, you know, I can help you next time? Kind of?
I was going to save it to the end, but I'll do it now because you sort of brought it up. Do you do a check-in and a check-out with your students?
Yeah.
We don't.
I always find that's a really good way. So when you come in next time, I will just check in with all of you. So we just go around the room, see how everybody's been today.
Yeah.
And you say a little bit like the day, how you've been, a bit tired tonight.
Every.
And then before we all go home tonight, I will do a check-out. Just, you know, check out with everybody, because it's not what they say, it's what they don't say. So quite often you can pick up with somebody who will say something, but they are meaning something completely different. And then you can pick them up separately. Does that make sense? So I always find that really good way to work.
Yeah, I think we do that in the trade a lot, as a whole, like, obviously,
Yeah, you.
especially now, like, men, non-violent men,
Yeah.
we try to do it, makes the garage, I was like, all right, man, how you doing?
Just touch it a little bit.
I was like, I was at home, I was with mixing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just standing conversation, and say to the students that I knew.
Business.
Yeah, but it's like, oh,
No, what do you say?
I normally say stuff like, worked on any cars recently,
Yeah.
anything interesting, what you been up to, stuff like that, just. Like I said, we do have a trade, normally we're quite like a band of brothers, really.
Yeah.
You know?
Very much
And
that.
that's the way I've like saw when I've come from being a tradesman teacher, where I kind of have to draw a little line, and it's quite hard with that. Where I have to treat them as such as a student sometimes, whereas if it's coming from the trade, I treat everybody as like a friend. And sometimes you can't cross that line over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
It's
difficult
more
line,
like
isn't it? Oh, yeah, I find that
It could
very much.
be, but you can still care.
Yeah.
You know, like I was saying earlier with my, I mean, they're all adults, but you know, I walk in the class, they were such and such gone, oh, they went home. They felt a bit overwhelmed, they'd gone home. What was they overwhelmed about? I got a bit of panic now. What was I teaching in the hour before? Especially with our subjects,
Yeah.
you know, do you give them a ring? Do you follow them up? So I want some positiveness now, because I think that there still should be, not safeguarding, but you know what I mean, duty of care.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
you know, all of you sat in here, you're under my care tonight. You know, so I think, as I say, the check-in and check-out thing, I think is a really good way of addressing that as well.
I tend to sort of, every morning when I've done it right from day one, we don't get straight into practical. Everyone sits around, we have like you've got workshop benches. They all pull a stool up, we all have a chat,
Brilliant.
20 minutes, half an hour. I'll have a cup of coffee on the go. And I'll say, boys, this is what it's like on the job, because you'll jump in a van and you'll be chatting to somebody for half an hour on the way to work.
Before you get there.
You know, so this is what real life's like. I said, so, you know, just get to break. I mean, a lot of them, you find, I've noticed in the 5 months or whatever I've had them, that they are definitely more engaging. They'll automatically now come in, put the phone away, straight away, get a chair. And it's great, because I'll sit there some mornings and they're all having a gas to one another now. And I think it's great. And I might just talk to the lad next to me and I'm like, yeah, you know, how you doing? All right, yeah. You know, they were put one last night again, mate. Yeah, all this carry on. We have it all going on. It's really good. And yeah, this morning I had to say, come on, boys, it's 9:30. We better get started.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right, isn't it? It's gauging that room. What do they need from me? What can I give them? And what's the best way for me to teach that? That's exactly what it is, isn't it? If they just need that, just that 10 minutes to chill out. Was it B&Q in Hereford? I don't think they do it anymore. But before they opened the doors, all the staff stood at the door and they had a bit of a sing song and a bit of a shakeout, something like that. I'm sure it's B&Q in Hereford. Before they even opened them doors to trade. Because I found it quite funny, but it worked. It was something that just brought them all together at the beginning of the day. And I can't believe it's saying they went home and did that. But yeah, it's little things like that, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, we are almost done, I promise. Or you can have another 2 hours if you like. No time wants to go. Yes, we do. They say, please, we do. Okay. Get back on here. Messed it up now. It's gone to sleep. That's gone to sleep.
I did my glasses ain't working, and I've got a very small. There we are.
No, this is me. Right, so we've done that bit. We've done that bit. Done that bit. Okay, to the very last bit then, somebody touched on it earlier as well. Why is it important for learners to develop their English maths, ICT and wider skills. Because as you say, this isn't school anymore now, this is college. So you've been and done your GCSEs, you pass them, not pass them, whatever's happened. So why is it still important to carry on with this going forward? You were saying, yeah, I like your example actually. You might share it that one.
What's this?
Would be,
Oh, with the late power tools, yeah. Yeah, so basically when we've been teaching power tools recently, students being students, they look at the spinny blade thing, and the first thing I'll do is start sticking the finger in there. Right, okay, here's the reason why we're not going to do that. We ended up bringing them back to the maths a bit and made them work out how many blades are on the actual tool they're using, how many revolutions a minute it's going. That's all right, okay, so we times that by 60, and we can divide that down by 60, and now we're going to tell you how many times a second is that going to cut you. So that generally gives them a bit of a chance to respect their kit.
yeah.
That's a good idea.
But also it brought the math in, because it's not easy, is it? But me doing counselling, it's really not easy.
Yeah.
We get 50 minutes with the clients, that's about as far as we go with maths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we bring invoicing in, because they all love to know how much they want to earn.
Oh,
So you-
Good
you
one,
bring-
good
Bring
one.
an invoice in.
Not that.
Boys, you've just done that little exercise, let's have a bit of a costing out. How much you going to charge somebody for that? And that's another way of doing it,
Yeah,
because they're all of a sudden they're like,
It's real and they,
oh,
yeah, I do as well, and they love sitting down and going on all the websites, cost all the materials out, and I said, right, well, how much would it, per hour would you charge?
yeah,
Would you charge a higher amount for the first hour, because you've had to get there to the job? And they see the tone, they go, money.
But the issue we got now is they're turning around to us and say, if you watch YouTube, he's made 100 blocks. He's £4 a block and all that. So it's like,
So I actually encourage my lads to do that. We broke down a costing, labour rate costing on board. And I did it in real terms. So first thing I said, right, we're going self-employed today, like that. I said, what's the first thing you need? Someone, hey, what's the first thing you need? Go self-employed. And van, right, get on your phones, buy a van. And then we buy a van.
yeah.
And right, and they all buy a van, and we write all these little examples down. You've got the one at 20 grand, the one at 40 grand, the one at 500 quid. You know what I mean? And we break it all down, and you make it a bit of fun, right? You know, okay, but then you still get to quite a surprising amount, but for your labour rate, and then it makes it more real, brings that realism into it.
What
It
you
brings
do
in
is
maths. It brings
take
in
the
maths.
box,
Yeah.
box that's always left on the end of the scheme of work. How am I gonna get all this in? It's on the next slide, sorry. Yeah, how am I gonna get all this in?
Yeah.
And actually, I've just been studying for about 2 minutes and thinking, "Oh, I could have done that with the counselling students, actually. I could have got them out of the set of private practice. How much will you have to thank you for that?
I did another one with the managing director. So I was trying, and I did that because we had one group, they will know what I mean, all right, a bit more enthusiastic than the other group, all right? And I thought, I gotta bring it, and I don't want to give them the old school, where the school teacher standing there and you're this, you're that, and because that's one thing I said, do you find your boys have all been downtrodden and they've never had any praise through school? Do you find that with yours? Yes. They're very low on confidence, they are very low on confidence, very low on self-esteem. So I wrote managing director on the top of the board. All right, I said, who wants to be one of them? And then we went through every single role that a managing director could be. And I said, look, we're not talking about a massive company here, 4 or 5 employees. And we just went, and we filled the board up. We filled a whiteboard that size up with different roles. And then that brings in maths, brings in English,
Of course it does.
okay? And it brings in wider skills like ICT,
Yeah.
sales, all this sort of thing. And you can see them sitting there. And there are other ways that these boys are practical, but they also want that money is the grab all mind. You start talking about money, that grabs them mind, and encourage them to do
yeah,
it.
but then you've also got to educate them on the fact that if it's raining, you can't work.
Yeah.
So you need to set aside that amount of money to cover your sort of.
We've got any angry rate. We got to 20,000 quid before you, and funny enough, I'd done the same thing with my accountant about 3 years ago. We got to 20 grand just to walk out the front door. And it's quite amazing.
In fact,
No, that's before you start.
Yes.
20 grand to walk out your front door.
oh, sorry, in
Not-
cost, not in
In
pounds.
quite,
See, I heard, see what I heard? I heard what you're shooting
Well,
for.
that is
the other way I used to.
that is a plumber's rate now, mate.
When they're trying to learn the fittings, when they're trying to learn the fittings,
I held up the one fitting me, 15 mil compression tee goes in there. And I went, boys, this is your money maker. I said, you always have one of these on your van, right? I said, because when you get the phone call, somebody wants an outside tap fitted on the way home, that's 150 quid. And I said, and that bad boy, you can do it in half the time if you've got one of them. And they remember 15 mil equal T, and that is in week 2.
Yeah.
It's mad, it's mad. Yeah.
All these different approaches that we take to teaching, yeah, and the impact that it has on the students. What works, what doesn't work, what can I learn from you? Just learn from you. I can put maths into my counselling. I can change up my scheme of work later.
Yeah.
So it's what we can all learn from each other as well, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm not going to get you to do post-it notes on a board, because I think that discussion was enough really to say how we do get that in. And the importance of all of these things, just for general in life, isn't it? If you're going to be in a trade, you need to be able to write out your invoice, don't you? And you need to be able to sell yourselves if you've got a little website or something like that. So your English is important, is it? Or any language, whatever language you're in is important. Maths, as you say, there's no point in saying, oh, 20 quid an hour and I'll do A, B, C, D, E, and F, and it then costs you £50 an hour before you take anything. ICT is everywhere now, isn't it? You can't get away with it.
Than I am.
Well, you can't get out of it, you know. That's probably the bit that we don't need to teach them than anything.
That was a bit I had to actually pay somebody to do,
This is
because
it.
I'm in that generation.
This is
And
it.
it's like, I need to be out there, and it's like, I can't do this. You know, and so I end up paying people to do it.
And if you think about the wider skills, before I say, does anybody just want to add in there? What wider skills do you think there are as well?
Well, I was just thinking from the English point of view and the wider skills. So one of the things I'm doing at the moment is setting up role play in the skills lab. So it's our skills lab is set out like a ward.
Yeah.
So we're going to do some role play on different roles in healthcare, and so they get to choose which one they want to role play. And this week I've given them job application forms. So for them to apply for that job, and that's how they, so that sort of getting them ready for their future roles or whatever it is they want to do, and getting them to see what a job application looks like and that kind of stuff.
So it's all of those wider skills, isn't it? What do I need? You know, I'll be leaving home, I'll be setting up house, I'm going to be working with different people, I'm not just with my mates anymore now, I'm going for a job interview. It's all of those things, isn't it?
Yeah,
And I think behind all of that is instilling confidence, isn't it?
yeah, I say to the students that you've almost got to learn to become an actor
Yeah.
in the fact that if you're a building site with a whole lot of other trades, you'll be able to behave a certain way. If you walk into a mansion house with shag carpet everywhere and you're about to do a really expensive job and your clients are really posh, you're going to have to behave another way. And if you go to a trade counter, you're going to behave a different way. You have to learn to take on these roles and act appropriately in those circumstances.
On,
Reasons why behind it, isn't it?
from a construction point of view, an on-site bricklayer, they do behave differently. I've had them where I brought them in from off-sites onto private jobs. That's my work is private, sort of individual clients. And we've really got to sometimes just say to them that
Rein it in, boys.
rein in the language, rein it,
Yeah.
and it's all, and I always say to them, do a standard of work where you want it to be done at your own house. Yeah, and like, if you're not happy with it, the clients, I've always been like that, really, yeah.
I think the one key word, right, I think is confidence. And Karen, she mentioned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this bit, I was looking at the end there because I thought, yeah, there wasn't that last step.
Confidence, right? Them boys, and we're all in agreement, they come in from a society or an environment, not a society maybe, but an environment where it's been, you're expected to do this, you haven't got it. You haven't done this well enough. This isn't good enough. This could be better. Right? When I stood over some of them lads and they had a better big piece of pipe in their life, and I would go, what do you think of that then? Oh, it's crap, Dad. Why is it crap? It's not crap. Oh, it's not as good as yours. I said, no, but how many times have I done it over 38 years? How many times have you done it? I said, this is pretty good, mate. I said, you should sing first. I'm a better piece of pipe, you know, mine was as good as that. And it's got to a stage, it took me till Christmas to get into to a stage where in that workshop I thought, right, I've got the confidence of the board,
Self-belief and.
the self-belief, that I can challenge them now.
Yeah.
Now I can start going, right, you can work that out for yourself.
Yeah.
Don't come to me with that little simple problem like that. I want you to take that away, go on that bench, right? And go and see if you can figure it out. I said, you will get a lot more gratification from that than me going, hey, you do this, you do that, there you go, off you go. And
It's all about, isn't it? Like I say, it's instilling confidence. Like, how many times have they heard, well done? No, done a really good job there. Yeah, are you with me?
Really sad.
The negative, they'll remember the negative forever. The little praise they'll have for 5 minutes and then it's gone. So it's important they get a lot of that all the time. Same with counselling. I don't tell anybody what to do. I don't give advice to anybody. But I sit there and help them learn it for themselves. And that's where the power is, isn't it? So like you say, if they can go away and solve that on their own, it's much more powerful. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so that was that last bit. I just it's all this is important because their personal skills and knowledge will develop further. That was what we said. It will instill confidence and how to behave in the adult world, as we were saying, and in the workplace. Yeah, that was it really. So we have covered it all. All of this will be on there for you to refer back to. When you have this on Teams as well, if you click notes under the PowerPoint, you'll have all your notes and stuff. So just the very last bit then, what I would advise you to do, and this is something again for my students, and you will need to do it. It's 5